Welcome to Where Do I Stand? Today we're going to branch out a little bit from our typical content, and we want to share a story from your experience that you had, Dad, last weekend when you traveled to North Carolina to help with some cleanup after Hurricane Helene.
Yes.
And let's just dive on in. How did you guys get connected with this? How did you decide to do this? Tell us more about it.
Well, our church, Calvary Chattanooga, has been sending teams to North Carolina, around Asheville area, which was really devastated by the storm, to help with the recovery process there. And we're staying in a Baptist church outside of Asheville. And so we were connecting with this Baptist church. It's also part of the relief effort to the people who have been so devastated by the storm. And so we stayed in their gymnasium, a bunch of guys sleeping in air mattresses and cooking for ourselves and having food there. My son, Christopher, contacted the guys at church and decided, let's go down. And at first I was thinking, I can't go because I threw out my back. I was in a lot of pain knowing that I was doing physical labor and I wasn't going to go, and Christopher was going to go. And then Christopher contacted Matt, who was the leader of the group, and said, hey, don't worry about that. Just come down. Let's have fellowship. And so we went 4 hours down the road through the mountains of North Carolina to Asheville. That's how it started. And we got there about a little after noon, and they were in this one area and they're cutting trees. I didn't know what I was going to do. I ended up being able to carry logs. It was a lot of pain, carrying logs, stacking them on a pile. Our church has a ministry for recovery from addiction. Along with that ministry, there's a farm that our church has, and it's based on the concept of Joel Salatin. It's a land reclamation farm so that the farming doesn't destroy the earth. It actually farms in such a way that it actually renews the soil of the earth. The running mate for RFK Jr. that's really interested in this sort of soil reclamation that is so important in terms of the health of our society, also our planet, and a wonderful way of farming that actually creates an ability to continue to use the land for growing crops. It's all organic, and the way they do it is really amazing. So the farm and the recovery center are connected because the farm is a place where they can not just to work, but also to work out their struggles as they go through their recovery process. And the leaders of the group were the ones who were heading up the recovery efforts in North Carolina. And two in particular were there who were just really wonderful, amazing people in terms of their leadership experience. And I'm a Christian, and I've been to seminary and school for theology, and I've done this most of my life. And I'm telling you, the experience with these guys, I now understand for the first time in my life, in a long time, truly what it was like to be a disciple of Jesus and to live in that context where you're sharing your life with each other, going out and helping people and bringing the knowledge of Jesus into that area. And I have never experienced that. It's been one of the most impactful events that I've ever experienced in my life. And it was awesome. And what we would do, we'd get up in the morning and have Bible study. And for an hour, we talk about what Jesus wanted, the Holy Spirit wanted in our life, understanding the scriptures, and just building each other up. And to be able to go into these devastated areas. And then to ideas to serve people, not charging them anything, removing literally tons of debris. We had a backhoe, that Kubota, and that would just grab huge amounts of debris and then carry it to the road so that the city could pick it up. And there's so many people who are so devastated in the area. I mean, I'm telling you, what we saw looked to me like what has happened in Gaza. You know, it's like cars blown up. People, there were trailers with X's on them, and they had the number of people who died in the trailer. It was just devastating. It was devastating.
Take a second, and for the people who aren't super familiar with the Bible, there might be a little bit of a disconnect. People who don't understand who the disciples were before they became disciples.
They were just normal. They were normal, everyday people, right? Though they came from different backgrounds. There was a diverse group of Jewish men who came from diverse backgrounds who would not have any real connection out of the group. There were fishermen. There were political zealots.
Tax collectors. And Mary Magdalene.
They're all different kind of backgrounds. What was really interesting about this group of people that gathered, we all had different backgrounds. There was a guy who had been a commercial fisherman, and he was in his 50s, and he talked about how addiction destroyed his life, destroyed his marriage, and then his recovery. And then there's another guy who had only one arm, the other was deformed, and he was like, oh, he's so impressive. He was like working the chainsaw, and he talked about how he was trying to recover from alcoholism, how he had this wonderful job working at the Miami Dolphins Stadium as a groundskeeper. He said this is the best job he had in his life, but addiction destroyed that. And then he went to Chattanooga, and now he's married, and he's also a leader in the group. He told a wonderful story of his recovery. And another guy who was a professional soccer player, who after 8 months of playing soccer, he destroyed his knee, couldn't play it anymore. These are the kind of people. There's a retired police officer from around Oakland, California, who had moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, because he wanted to get out of California because of the things that are happening in California, and especially with the police. He was part of the group. Of course, I'm a counselor. My son is involved in tech. We all kind of got together and just really melded together because of the spirit that was there that comes when you understand who Jesus is. And it was just an absolutely wonderful experience. And so all these people could come together, and there were the most humble people, disciplined, dedicated workers who really wanted to help people. That's the key thing. And these are not the people most people would normally connect with. And they don't understand the quality that's there. Because in our society, we're more concerned about image than we are about what's really underneath. And you can see these guys, they're not made the most attractive people in the world. They're the people you want around you.
Right.
They're the people who will go and save you from drowning.
They're not
right?
the social media influencers who are...
They're not social media influencers.
Right.
No, they're not. What we did, I'll tell you a story, that what we did was we went around to houses, and a lot of times we broke up into two teams, and we were just supposed to find places to go. We were being led by the Spirit to find places to go. I was with a group in that process, and we drove by this one house, and there was a number of people in the house pulling stuff out of the house. It was devastated. I mean, it was one of the only houses in the area that was still standing because the river came through there.
And this has been over a month since this hurricane.
It's over a month, right. The mud was 3 feet deep in this house. And we were cleaning out, we were pulling things out of the house. We were pulling cabinets, we were pulling refrigerators, stoves. It's all trashed. Everything's trashed. Toilets, everything's trashed. Got to get down to the bare bones of the house. And so they wanted to save the house because the young mother who was pregnant, giving birth in December, her grandfather built this house. And this is the only house she had. Honestly, the house had probably been paid for. She probably didn't have any insurance on this house. She is completely devastated. So we're out there, and she's thanking us for our help and everything. We gather around her, and of course, we're bringing Jesus, and we want to pray for her and bless her. And so we're standing around, and we're praying for her. And I'm standing there, all of a sudden, an idea comes up in my head. And she's standing there, and I said to her, do you know what an Ebenezer is? And she goes, no, I don't know what an Ebenezer is. I said, an Ebenezer is in the Old Testament, in ancient Israel, where the Israelites would stack stones, create a monument to remind them of the victory God gave them in their particular experience, whatever it was, a battle or whatever it was. It was to remind them that God was for them and not against them. And I said to her, your house is an Ebenezer. I didn't know what I was saying at the moment, right? And then one of the guys looks at the foundation stones where the dirt had been washed away. You can see the foundation stones. They're like stones that you took from a river. You can see the foundation stone. One of the guys says, there's the Ebenezer right there. It was interesting. In the afternoon, we left to go back to our place to eat, and we slept. And the next morning, one of the guys woke up and he said, I had a dream last night, and I think we're supposed to go back to that house today and see what more we can do. It's like, here's the disciples, right? It's like disciples of Jesus. They're being led by the Spirit. We're connecting with God himself. He's teaching us how to live in a way where he is involved deeply in our lives.
And let me pause you just for a second and explain to anybody listening that you're not there to gain anything.
No.
You guys aren't there to sell anything.
No.
You're not there to convert anybody. You're not there to receive money for anything.
Right.
You're just there to help.
Right. And we're doing it for free. Everything's for free, right? So we're standing there, and I mean, and that morning he says, I think we need to go back. So we go back. We go to other places first because there are other things we have to do. Cleaning property. There was an older lesbian couple that had these huge trees. It was just covering their whole backyard. We cut them all up. We cleaned up their backyard completely. There's another guy, he had a house, and there's tremendous trash around. We picked all that trash up and then moved it. There was another elderly woman up the road that we helped. And then we finally went back to this young woman's house, and we got there, and it was really interesting. The church we were working with that let us stay in their gym, they are also working together with us, and we told them what we were doing, and the church then decided to take on this family as their own personal project to make sure that they had what they needed. And also, there was a person in the church who had a condo, and she said, you can have all the furniture in my condo, that when you get that place, we're get the house together. And then there was a guy who was a colonel in our church, Army colonel, and he was pulling strings to help get them a trailer set up on their property so that they could live there while they're rebuilding their house.
Amazing.
Yes. And it's really interesting. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. And a 10-year-old daughter who came up to one of the guys, I was scraping mud out of one of the back rooms, a little tiny bedroom. And she says, have you seen my black and brown bear that I lost? She was looking for her toys. And he goes, no, sweetie, I haven't. What happened was that she was selling candy on the street to people who were going by. And her mother said, you can have the money, buy toys and candy. And then the little girl said, no, Mom, I'm going to give you half of what I made. The guys bought a huge bag of candy, gave it to her to sell. But the thing is that it's so powerful to see this movement of the Spirit when people are really connecting to Jesus and his desire to show people that he's for you and not against you. It's so important to hear that and to be around that. And the most important thing about it was that it was like a ministry to me. I'm sitting there and I'm doing things for other people, but I'm being filled. And I really understand what Jesus meant when he said to the disciples after he spoke to the Samaritan woman at the well, and it was time to eat. And the disciples come up to him and says, Jesus, do you want something to eat? And Jesus turns to Peter and says, Peter, I have food that you know nothing about. You're feeding off of the reality of living out of the Spirit's way of living. Mm-hmm. And that is so important. And I think that's the most important thing about this, because things like this will be devastating to experience for many, many people, but we're called to do this as people. This is what life is really about.
Turning 71 this year for you, having led the life that you've led and the experiences, because you have not had a lack of transformative moments in your life. And you share that very openly.
Right. We have all kinds of Ebenezer's happen in our life. I mean, we made a list of them. I should sit down and make another list of them because it is continuing to happen.
And to go through your entire life with all of these incredible experiences and at 71 have this level of an experience.
It's amazing.
It's never too late.
No. It's not too late. It keeps your mind flexible, keeps you engaged in what life's all about. It gives you hope, especially when the chaos that we're living in. I was talking to a person right before I called you in my counseling. This person is like disturbed because of all the chaos that's happening. Mm-hmm. And to connect to this way of living gives you hope because right. Because
we don't have a lot of hope right now.
No, it's not a lot of hope.
It's not. I mean, even for people like us, right, where we're very engaged in what's going on in our communities, in our world, and have a very strong faith and tools in our tool belt to see through a lot of what's going on and having an eternal perspective rather than this kind of whatever is in front of me is controlling how I feel. Even we can experience this heaviness of what's happening in our world. And it's wonderful to hear this story, but at the same time, it's hard because I can't stop myself from going to a place of wanting to ask, well, was FEMA there? Did you see anybody?
That's interesting. FEMA was there, but it wasn't there in the places that were most devastated. It was there on the sort of the areas that had been already developed and everybody had electricity. We were looking for government assistance and there was none, especially in the most devastated areas. And I didn't understand why. Why isn't FEMA setting up right? And they had the facility. Why don't they set up down here where people are living in tents where it's needed, right? And they had a school. They're not going to go to school. They had a school and a schoolyard where they could set everything up. I don't get it. I didn't understand that. But that's fine. FEMA did what they do. But the thing is that then there were so many people who were there. Samaritan Purse was there. They were working in people's houses. You could see the people who really care. And say, this is a month later, and the news is gone. It's not exciting anymore. Down to the nitty gritty of doing the hard work. And you know what? The news doesn't care about that. They don't care about that. They only care about what's going to give them rating. And you know what? That's one of the reasons why we have such a problem in our society. Because all we're concerned about is image. We're not concerned about the reality of what's underneath it. We're just concerned about how we present ourselves, our good intentions. We don't care about the work that needs to be done in order to prove those good intentions. We just care about how we look to people. And that's what the media is all about.
And division.
And division, right.
What do you think would be one takeaway that you would want to pass on from this experience?
And this is for churches too. Churches also have fallen into this experience of separating out their understanding of who they need to be from the experience of actually going out and participating in a way that where you can actually see God work. The most important thing that I got from this experience was I saw God work. Everybody says, "Oh, where's God working? How does God work? I don't understand how God speaks to you. I don't understand how you do that." You see God at work. When I was with those guys, Jesus was there. There's no question. I mean, we're being led by the Spirit. Jesus was there. You don't even question the reality of Jesus at that point. You see it at work.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A lot of Christians go to church, they sit in the pews, they go to church service, they go home, and then they live their life.
Right. No impact, no change.
And then they ask the question, I don't see God.
Yeah. It's easy to live a life that is in your control.
Easy to live a life that's under your control.
And when you step outside of that and put yourself in a situation where there is really very little control and you simultaneously give everything you have to it.
You don't see God. It excludes God, the presence of God in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable at first, going there and not knowing what to do, not knowing that I was going to be able to do anything. Frankly, I was in a lot of pain. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? Just sit around and twiddle my thumbs? I took the risk of saying, okay, I wanted to go, but the door was open for me when the guy said, hey, listen, we just come for the fellowship. And I'm telling you, at the end of the thing, I said, what do you think about this experience? And I said, and of course, the ministry that he's involved in is called Renew. And I said, I didn't think about it. I was making a connection with that. But I said, it's created renewal in me. He says, that's exactly what I wanted to see happen. And it did. It did.
Yep.
Excited. I'm hopeful. I mean, no matter what happens, I'm hopeful.
When I spoke with you last week, you were thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to go.
There's no way I can go. So I was having difficulty standing up straight because I tweaked my back and it was really painful. I don't know if I has back pain like I did, but it's pretty bad. I'm okay now. But I went anyway, and God enabled me to do it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we were able to sit and talk about this because I think it's such an important thing to not lose focus of that there's still people that are experiencing this major loss within our country. I mean, within our own community. They're not very far from where you guys are. And we need to continue to create space for talking about this and encouraging people to get involved. Whether you have a strong faith or any faith at all, there are opportunities to go and show up and help people and experience something that is not only helpful to other people, but you will leave transformed. And it's really, really spectacular.
Absolutely. Yes.
Appreciate your time on this, and I'm excited to share it with everybody.